If you have a look at Edvard Munch's work, you will see it ranges in style, delivery, and technique, but there is one factor that remains constant for the most part: atmosphere. All of his paintings share a unique, often dreary, sinister tone. It is quite difficult to put into words, but there is something there in most of them that makes us cringe, however slightly. None of them look real, often employing abstract shapes and symbolism that is difficult to explain. And yet, there is something terribly vulnerable about these paintings. His characters, as empty and ghoulish as they may come across, often looking more like skeletons, are still inexplicably human. These worlds Munch created are clearly not real, don't get me wrong, but at the very same time, they are sufficiently real for us to relate to them. And there is a simple reason why. These paintings aren't scenes, they are feelings. He called it soul painting. Munch was never interested in copying life for what it was. Instead, he yearned for something deeper in his work. About his work, he once said, "No longer should interiors be painted, people reading and women knitting. There would be living people, breathing and feeling, suffering and loving." When Munch sat down in front of the canvas, he saw an opportunity for self-discovery, a chance to paint his soul, to give a face to his human condition. And once you understand this, the Scream, and by consequence the rest of his work, suddenly doesn't feel so weird. Somehow, these lifeless scenes gain a new dimension. It's truly fascinating how perfectly these fit with different emotions and feelings, as if Munch understood what these intangible emotions looked like. Looking back at the Scream, we can make sense out of this chaos by understanding how Munch felt when he painted it. "I was walking down the road with two friends when the sun set. Suddenly, the sky turned as red as blood. I stopped and leaned against the fence, feeling unspeakably tired. Tongues of fire and blood stretched over the bluish-black fjord. My friends went on walking while I lagged behind, shivering with fear. Then I heard the enormous, infinite scream of nature." Munch sounds demented in this description, as if he'd lost his bearing of reality. And this is exactly what he painted in this piece. This panic attack, this metaphorical scream he talks about, that's what this painting is about. It is about anxiety. But how did he do it? What does anxiety look like? Color carries a lot of symbolic significance in all of Munch's works. These dark shades of blue and brown, paired with the abundant use of black, actually make sense. I know many of these are ugly, but not because Munch wasn't a skilled artist. His earlier work proves he was. He understood color theory and mastered the Impressionist technique, but when it came to his work, he adopted an unconventional yet extremely effective aesthetic. Munch understood color psychology like no other artist before him, and he exploited this knowledge to draw emotions. When he felt mundane, he used brown. Depression became dark blue. Anxiety turned into a dark orange sky, and pain became black. Of course, the symbolic meaning of each of these colors is up to the viewer's interpretation, which is a part of what makes the Scream so universal. Each viewer will have a different reaction to each of the colors, and therefore will feel different about them. The Scream uses many of these colors to saturate the piece with emotion. There's blues, blacks, browns, reds, oranges, whites. They all exist in the same frame, fighting for your attention as your eyes drift from one corner to the next. Even something like the bridge is made up of many different colors. Small lines of blue, white, and red are visible on the bridge floor, which reminds us of Munch's Impressionist formation. These colors shouldn't work well together, and in any other context, they don't. But here, the visual chaos they create is exactly what the artist was aiming for. This is emotional saturation, a modern-day panic attack. Difficult to make sense of, but very easy to understand. But color is just part of what makes up Munch's soul paintings. His technique, this reinterpretation of the Impressionist style whereby he uses different lengths and shapes of lines to create a scene, has a remarkable effect. It is one of the most distinguishable features in the Scream, and although it isn't as evidently present in other works by him, it is usually there in some iteration. Munch uses lines to guide your eyes. In the Scream, he makes a clear distinction between straight lines, representing the real world, and distorted, wavy brushstrokes, which represent the imaginary scream of nature. The bridge's railing acts as a frontier between these two worlds, separating order from chaos through the use of contrasting hues, brown for the mundane reality versus a more vibrant but obscure palette for the imaginary world. The realistic perspective drawing of the bridge stands in stark opposition to the distorted, flat backdrop, making that the focal point. Your eyes dance from the orange sky, which captures your attention straight away, over the flowing lines of the river, along to the distorted body of the figure in the foreground. From here, your eyes follow the bridge towards the two silhouettes in the distance and end up back in the orange sky, effectively creating an almost hypnotic visual loop, which makes the painting feel saturated, overwhelming even. This cycle of confusion and order is anxiety according to Munch. And of course, one cannot analyze the Scream without talking about the source of all this heated debate: the man. This haunting, faceless distortion of a man, with its gaping mouth and empty eyes, is what makes the painting so disturbing. He stands on the bridge with reality, but he's out of place in it, blending instead into the flowing scenery behind him. From Munch's description of his inspiration for this painting, we know that this is a symbol for the artist himself. It captures his emotion during this panic attack, the fear he felt at that moment in time. He uses the two silhouettes of the man to contrast his panic with their calmness, making it clear that this distortion of the real world, this anxiety, was all in Munch's head. And yet, this is not Munch. This is not a man. Why did he choose to draw such a disturbing representation of himself? Surely part of the reason is he wanted the figure to blend into the chaos in the backdrop, but to understand the real reason why this face is so important and such a perfect artistic decision, we need to look at his other work. Blank, expressionless faces, often hazy or outright featureless, are a motif in Munch's work. Sometimes they are intentionally vague to represent faceless secondary characters who decorate the scene. Other times he draws only the features he needs to create a certain expression, a certain emotion on the character. Sometimes he has them face away, and other times they stare right at us. These blank, pale, and anguished faces disturb us for their simplicity. As we try to make sense of the world Munch presents, we try to grasp onto familiar experiences. There is nothing as comforting to us as seeing another human face. Faces help us establish a deeper connection with a painting and its characters. They provide a pivot around which the rest of the stage orbits in harmony. But there is no such comfort in Munch's characters. Instead of giving us features, Munch gives us blank faces. He gives these the minimum amount of detail possible to craft the expression he wants to capture. A gaping mouth, flared nostrils, absent eyes. The rest does not matter. Similar to how Magritte used apples, birds, or flowers to hide the features of his characters, Munch does the same through a lack of detail. His characters are faceless because they are not characters. They are victims of the feeling that surrounds them. Souls, stretched and distorted by the pain, the fear, and the anxiety that make up their worlds. Munch drew his soul, but he kept it vague to allow others to place their souls in its place. In other words, the figure in the screen could be anyone, and that is exactly Munch's point. In all his frames, his characters don't matter. They don't have names, they don't have their own story, they are simply placeholders. They are there to illustrate the feelings Munch wanted to draw, to help us immerse ourselves into the macabre realm of the soul. But they are never the focus, which is exactly why he paints them with pale, bland colors, unimportant and always used to enhance the backdrop, rather than steal its spotlight. Faces are the final piece in Munch's complicated puzzle. With this, he had managed what other artists before him could have only dreamed of achieving. He had learned how to paint feelings. Munch's paintings are hard to interpret. Everyone is almost guaranteed to have a different reaction to the colors, the composition, and the techniques that he used to create these soul paintings. But this is exactly what has granted this innocuous 1893 canvas such a notorious legacy 100 years after its original release. This is one of the crowning achievements of art, in my opinion. The most successful attempt at drawing something as universally abstract as a feeling. To this day, no other artist has recreated what Munch did in the 19th century, and frankly, I don't think it will happen anytime soon. So for now, this is what we have. This is what anxiety looks like. Thank you so much for watching the video until the end. I really hope you have enjoyed it. I have a couple other videos on screen which I think you might like, so be sure to check those out. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. Do you hate this? Do you love it? Suggestions, insults, love, every comment is appreciated. I respond to every one of them, no matter how badly you hurt my ego. If you do like what you see though, you already know what button to click down there. If you don't, I'm not sure why you're still here, but hey. Anyway, that's all for today, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.